And now I'd like to invite up our prayer chaplain for today, Martin Klattenoff, to light the Christ candle and read the daily word.
We often hear about the light at the end of the tunnel, but the truth is that light is not just at the end of the tunnel, it's at the beginning. It's in us. It's the light that shows the way. It's the power by which we live, move, and have our being. Today's thought, Sunday, April the 7th, is let this be your prayer. Oh, I can go? Okay. To live life one day at a time, one step at a time. To have the strength and the will to keep on keeping on. To have the wisdom to handle the affairs of your life. To have the ability to make the right and good decisions. To have the courage to let the past go. To forge ahead resolutely. To have the grace to meet each experience expectantly, happily. To have faith to know there is no loss or separation in God, that in God you are forever one with those you love. To have the vision to see the good in all things, the Christ in all persons. To have an awareness of God's presence, close and abiding. To know that underneath are everlasting arms, that God will never fail you nor forsake you. Let this be your prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, and lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.
Today we journey down a path of school of life. And as we go down this path, we see a blackboard. And on the top of the blackboard, it says, I do not like. So we pick up the chalk and we begin to write down some things that we do not like. We could even write people we do not like. Further down, we could perhaps write, I am prejudiced about. And at the bottom, we write all of the judgments that we carry. And then we step back and we look at what we just wrote down on this blackboard. And out of the corner of our eye, we see another blackboard. And on the top of that one, it says, this is how I feel about what I just wrote. These are my feelings. And you ask yourself the question, are these truly my beliefs? Who I like, who I don't like, who I judge, what I'm prejudiced about? Is this truly who I am? And then a light catches your eye. And you see this beautiful shimmering blackboard. And it has gold chalk. And on the top of that blackboard, it says, I am so blessed because, and you pick up the gold chalk and you begin to write. And on the bottom of that blackboard, it says, you get to choose. Erase yesterday. Let go and let love, forgiveness and gratitude come into my heart space. And as the divine universal love spreads from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, you look over and all you see as blessings all around you. And as you very gently walk from this classroom of life back to this very sacred, holy space, back to this spiritual family, and in peace and love, forgiveness and gratitude, and when you are ready, ever so gently, open your eyes and come back to this space. So today we're talking about the third power, judgment and wisdom. But just let's do a quick review on the first two powers that we did, power 1 and 2. Faith was the power with the disciple Peter, which denotes faith and strength. And then Andrew, which is the second disciple for the second power, and denotes endurance and persistence. So begin to see a trend where this is going to get us through the 12 powers in the 12 months that we're doing this in. So we have faith, we have strength, we have endurance, and we have persistence. And now we have to start looking within, because those are the two things that give us the foundation to move forward. But now the work begins, because we're talking about judgment and wisdom. And judgment, and if you take all of the different books that we were kind of going through this week, judgment and wisdom and discernment seem to all fall within the third power. And it makes total sense to me, because without wisdom, the question is, how would you use your judgment? You have to use judgment sparingly and cautiously. So knowledge comes, but wisdom lingers. So once we have wisdom, we know how to handle things prayerfully. So judgment then, here's what our society does to us. So you're going to be judged on what you wear. Hopefully I'm okay today. And you're going to be judged by what music you listen to, how you act, who you hang around with. Practically every personal trait about you and your imperfections. You're going to be made fun of for who and what you are. Welcome to society. Enjoy your stay. But as funny as it is, damn, it's the truth. And it's not a good truth either. See, what's the first thing that rolls through your mind when you hear judgment? Come on, somebody's brave. Huh?
I'm not good enough.
Not good enough. What else? Biblical. I love it. Okay. Judgment, what? Judge not that you be judged, right? Judge not that you be judged, for the judgment you judge with shall be judged, and it will be measured back to you in what you give out. So it goes back to cause and effect. It goes back to whatever you put out there is going to come back and bite you in the butt. So think about that when you're sitting with, and it's like, we always say that everything comes back to us tenfold, and everybody thinks that's about prosperity, which it is in all areas of what prosperity means. But also what we forget about is what you give out that's perhaps not so kind, that comes back and bites you in the butt as well. So it's important to remember that. So we have, the lesson is done then. We know that we don't give out, and only what we give out comes back to us. So we're done for the day. Does everybody get it? Okay, a little bit more. So these lessons then, actually it's from Matthew 7. It's part of the Sermon on the Mount, which is the moral teachings of the master teacher, Jesus. And we talked about that a little bit yesterday, that, Jesus is not the Savior, but he had moral teachings. And if we go into the biblical part of that and look at what these moral teachings were, then our whole society would be perfect. So John 7 says, do not judge by appearances, but judge by right judgment. What is righteous judgment? What is righteous judgment? You really have to think about that. Well, so there's a right way to judge and there's a wrong way to judge? No, not quite. That's not quite what it means. So the master teacher, Jesus, is quoted as saying, as I hear, I judge, and my judgment is righteous because I do not seek my own will. My judgment is righteous because I do not seek my own will, but the will of the Father who sent me. So what does that mean? It means that if you are judging something that is, my best friend is suddenly fallen, into hard times, and I need to step up and talk to that person, that would be righteous judgment. You're seeing something. You're doing a service. It's sort of like if you see something, say something, right? So what is the difference then between, you can say, I'm discerning. So what's the difference between judgment and discerning? It's when we believe we should stand up and help people. We observe, we perceive the difference between good choices and perhaps choices that are not so good. We do not use our own opinions. I think that you should do this, Martin. I don't have the right to have an opinion about what Martin should do or not do, or any of you. So we do not use our own opinion as judgment, because that's called faulty judgment, and that's not righteous judgment. Rather, we seek to be a sounding board or perhaps a prayer partner. Righteous judgment is when someone has to do an intervention. That's righteous judgment. You really see that something is so wrong, and something within you knows that there is somebody calling out for help. Suicide prevention lines is righteous judgment. After-school programs are righteous judgment. Washers and dryers are righteous judgment. Why? Why? So I heard a story on the news this week that just touched my heart. Many of the children that are in low-income school areas do not come to school clean. And because they don't come to school clean, because the mothers work, and most of them single, but mothers and fathers work 2 and 3 jobs just to get food on the table and pay rent. Children that don't come to school clean, especially middle school, starting at 10, 11, 12, and 13, when they're aware that people are making fun of them and talking about them in their faces and behind their back, oh, you little pig, you're dirty. Children can be very cruel. So a principal of this school bought 5 big washers and dryers and put them in the school. And the hours are from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night, so that working mothers can come there and do laundry so that their children can go to school clean. And there were mothers on there with tears and in gratitude for this. And children that are older can, after school, help their parents and do laundry. And this man works untold hours to do this. And the result of this is that the grades have all come up because the young children have pride in the way they look. This is righteous judgment. When you see something that is, you're looking at this and going, oh my God, this is terrible. Another thing today on the morning show, there was a chef in, I believe, Denmark, and he worked in the most expensive restaurant in the world, Nona. There was like $1,000 a plate to eat there. And he made tons of money, and he was the top chef, and he decided this isn't what he wanted to do with his life. So he started school. He wanted to have good food in schools. So he got together a whole bunch of top chefs, and they looked at the thing, and how do they do good food for school? 3,500 kids now in, I forgot what county, in the U.S. now have top chefs making their food, and it's not coming out of taxpayers' money. People are donating the money. So when you look at something and you see, look at what these kids, look at what we're feeding our kids, and you say, what can be done about that? That's righteous judgment. That's discernment. That's having wisdom to take the ability that you have the power to do something and make a difference. So can you see the difference between me saying like, oh my God, that's a terrible outfit? That's judgment. And it's crappy judgment, and it's faulty judgment. But if we see somebody that's in need and we can reach out and help, that's righteous judgment. Does this make sense to you, what I'm saying? Yes, okay. So here's the thing. We're so fast, and I'm the first one to raise my hand. I will never say anything to you that's not the truth. We can be too fast to judge, and we're too slow to reflect. We're too slow to step back and wait a minute. And who are we to throw the first stone? I certainly am not. What about you? Is there anybody in here that is so perfect that we can't throw the first stone? Of course not. We all have our stories. We all have our skeletons. We all have only our best friend knows that about us, and that's all fine. That's all good. But how many times do we get mad at a driver? Slipped through a stop sign, went through the yellow too fast, blah, 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 blah. What I've learned to say, and oh yeah, Aubree-Lynn, when have you never done that? See the difference? Does that make sense to you? See the difference? So we're so quick to judge. Well, I would do this, and I know what's best for you, Monica. You just get with me after church and we'll talk about it. God almighty, who do I think I am? Who do we think we are? So, it's one thing, I read this and it just cracked me up. Don't judge others just because they sin different than you. So we all have our little things. And of course the sin is to miss the mark. That's all that means. Judgment prevents us from seeing what the good that lies behind. Since and I'm sure some of you experienced this, in being classes, you had this opinion about Susie Jones, but now you're in a class or a workshop with Susie Jones, and you, little by little, Susie Jones is opening up, and you go, oh my God, what a precious person, right? Because we begin to let go of the walls we build around everybody for their imperfections, and instead of loving them. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, speaks about quickening of the divine judgment. And what he is saying is when we call righteous judgment into action, we may find our standards of right or wrong undergoing rapid change. So prayerfully today, as you leave here, your consciousness about judgment will be having a different change. Something will be shifting in you and saying, oh my God, I'm so guilty of that. And guilt is a worthless emotion. I just want to let you know that. So this is about awareness then. Everything is, what does Dennis Merritt Jones say? ABC, awareness brings consciousness. And that's all it's about. See, because when we take a closer look at ourselves and we see things that are not up to our best, then what do? We judge ourselves. And then we can let others off the hook because we're judging ourselves. Or when we start to pick on that person instead of that person, we're letting that person off the hook. Nobody needs to be on the hook. We don't have a hook up here hanging with all of the things we need to let go of. Nobody needs to be let off the hook because we shouldn't put anyone on a hook. And we have to let our lofty judgments just be released, for sure. Another thing, Mother Teresa says this, if we are judging someone, we cannot love them at the same time. So I say choose love. It goes further. But even in love, wisdom and discernment keeps us from many a broken heart. Remember, knowledge comes, but wisdom lingers. So we don't want to keep doing the same things over and over and expecting different results, because what's that called? Insanity, right? Insanity. And Tony Robbins wrote, success in life is the result of good judgment. Good judgment is usually the results of experience. And I love this line. Experience is usually the results of bad judgment. Right? Because when we get caught up in something, then we have to, if we're using wisdom, we have to work through that to get to the other side of it. So bad judgment will bring us to wisdom, which then brings us to good judgment. And I really like that. So let's look at Matthew 7 again, though, for a moment. So judge not that ye be not judged, for what you judge, you shall be judged with what measure you met. It shall be measured against you. This could only come from one person that had a deep insight into the universal law of cause and effect. I mean, if you really wanted to break it down, new thought is about what you think, putting thoughts into action, and when you measure out what comes back to you, love, forgiveness, and gratitude, and we are the cause to our own effect. So when you have a deep insight to the law of cause and effects, and you begin to balance everything and see it in the long run, everyone receives his just due. Or as my grandmother would say, every dog has his day. It's, my nanny, she had a list of them. But it's true. It is not ours to give out judgment or revenge, or wait to see what happens to them. That is not what we're about. And everybody in here knows that. So, I'm preaching to the choir, actually. But the thing is, do we take it from here on Sunday, and do we take it out there? That's the important thing to do. It's like what a man sows, he must reap, right? If you plant good seeds, you get a good harvest. If you plant old and discarded and in the past seeds that have been rotting away in your garage, they're probably only one or two are going to grow, and they're only going to come up this big. So whatever a man sows, he must reap. It's the law of cause and effect. It's immutable. And every person's action produces the effect in his life, which in most cases must ultimately be experienced. Judgment is merely the law of cause and effect operating in the universe. The universe holds nothing against you. The universe only says what, students? Yes. Thank you. The universe says nothing against you. It rains on the just and the unjust. It doesn't matter. If it starts raining today and people are all outside in a parade, it's going to rain on everybody, right? Even though Barbara Streisand sings "Don't Rain on My Parade," it's going to rain on everybody. So what we set in motion then is going to come to a definite end. Therefore, it's true. We reap what we sow. So what does all of that mean anyhow? It means that life must return to us the manifestation of our motives, our thoughts, and our desires. Whether these motives, thoughts, and desires are for ourselves or others. How do we hold other people? Think about the blackboard. What did you have over here? How many people or things were you holding in bondage against yourself or somebody else? And then when you went over here and you look at all the blessings in my life, that immediately takes out all of that other stuff. If you're willing, I really thought about this morning when I was meditating. We say let go, let God. But I changed it. This morning it just hit me, let go, let love. Let go, let love. Because love is God, love is the healer. So let go, let love. Let love take it. Give it to love. Ultimately, we shall see that the universe rests on the shoulders of love. And I wrote that before I even had that epiphany today. That God is love and that all the errors of mankind are the results of ignorance of our true nature. in this wonderful book I absolutely love, and the whole prayer partners all love, Marianne Williamson, A Year of Miracles. A couple of days ago, I read this. The only path I ask is to monitor my own. The only path I'm asked to monitor is my own. Whoa. I resist all temptation today to judge how I think others should behave. I cannot know the deeper forces at work with anyone's heart. My deliverance comes from accepting all people, not judging or controlling them. I pray that when I'm tempted to speak or act without charity, that God's Spirit will correct my thoughts. I pray to be an instrument of love by which people are reminded of their innocence, or not an instrument of blame that reminds them of their guilt. I do this for my own sake, that I too might be released from feelings of guilt that would otherwise bind me. It is not my job to monitor anyone's journey, to know what's right or wrong for others, or to try to control their behavior. My salvation lies in deep acceptance of people actually as they are, that I might know the inner peace that such acceptance brings. That sums up the whole lesson, actually. There is a law common to all people that responds to their belief at the level of their belief. No man can be happy who lives in a continuous state of condemnation of people, conditions, and things. Do you have somebody in your life or in your family or your neighborhood that is always complaining and always has something negative to say? Do you like being around that person? How can that person ever be happy? We must learn. No, we don't have to learn. We must want. We must want to be better. The phrase that I'm only human is a cop-out, and we talked about that yesterday in the member orientation. Because we're spirit. Spirit houses us, and spirit lives in this human body. We're not humans waiting to get spiritual. So when we do something and we just want to pass it off and go, well, I'm only human. Well, yeah, you're having a human experience, but sometimes I think that's a cop-out, and I think that we need to stand up to that a little more and look at the truth of what that means. A 20-year-old man is looking out a train window, and he's shouting loudly, "Dad, look at the trees, they're going behind us." And his father smiled and noticed a young couple sitting nearby who were observing the 24-year-old's childish behavior with pity. Suddenly the young man exclaimed again, "Dad, look, the clouds are running with us." And the couple couldn't resist, and they said to the old man, "Why don't you take your son to a good doctor?" The old man smiled and said, "I did. We were just coming from the hospital. My son was blind from birth. He just got his eyes today." Judge not, lest ye be judged. Every single person on this planet, in this room, has a story. We all have our story. Don't judge people before you truly know them. Walk a mile in their shoes first. The truth just might surprise you. Thank you.